Good evening. Hey there, everybody. This is the Stephen E. Kelley Show. This is Truth Cat Radio. It is Thursday night, February 15th, 2018, the day after Valentine's Day. Pardon me. Well, of course, we have a big show planned, as always, and I just want to pull up the listeners here real quick. See how many of you guys are out there. Okay. All right. As you may have noticed, yeah, I'm back in Facebook jail. I'm not going to talk about it, but anyway, a lot of things are going on. Oh, wow, we have listeners from Mexico. This is interesting. Oh, hi, Mexico. I know who you are. Hey, I'm glad to see you got through, Kat. Looks like you got your stuff working. Awesome. Awesome. Russian Federation, welcome, welcome. Ottawa, as always. Okay. Now, Laura, I know you're going to be standing by. Hopefully you're standing by right now. You're going to be joining me here any second. I don't see you up on the list, but anyway, you can come in anytime, but I'm just going to start the show. Okay, tonight, the program tonight is called, what's it called? It's called Leto, Houdini, Getty. I should have said and Getty. What does this mean? Gosh, so cryptic, huh? Oh, yeah, Hollywood Underground Secrets. There you go. It's all about Hollywood. We're going to be going into Hollywood tonight, talking about Hollywood. Now, if you listen to the last show, it was pretty awesome. We had Laura called in, and she talked about the house that we come to know now quite a bit on former Air Force Base that we're going to be talking about that's now owned by Jared Leto. And, of course, Terry Joyce has been doing this quite a bit on her show, and she actually got a response from Shannon Leto, who is one of the band members on that silly band that Jared Leto has called 30 Seconds to Mars, which, of course, is very significant, just the name of this thing. Anyway, he got all upset because we basically have tied the family name to pedophilia, underground bunkers, satanic rituals, the Getty, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just too bad. This is War. They have a song, of course, that silly band has a song called This is War, and I think that was the exact line that he used on the the comment on Facebook. But, you know, obviously, yes, this is war. We've been at war for quite a while. If you haven't noticed, I mean, if you listen to the program, obviously you've been paying attention to what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years or so. Yeah, this is war. Yeah, hello. Yeah, it's war. Too bad that, it finally came home to you, but 5 years ago or whatever it was in November 2012, when I came out and did the Getty thing and first went public and talked about it, I talked about the fact that this particular bunker that is underneath the Getty, which houses all the pedophilia and child sex slaves and satanic rituals and elite this and that, is also connected to the homes of wealthy people scattered around the area. Now, we've been fortunate enough because of these things coming out, because of people that we've been associated with, to learn more and more about the Houdini house, the various tunnels that everyone knows are around LA, and the connection of the Houdini house to another property very close by known as Lookout Mountain, which is one of the streets right there. Now, Lookout Mountain was an Air Force station that was built, and I'm going to read to you from the Wikipedia a little bit just so that you can see what they're saying about this place, because it was not a secret. But of course, I've been saying that these are all connected to the Getty, and from what I'm seeing, these properties are all connected to the Getty and beyond. And we'll talk about the beyond here shortly. But the thing is that the Getty was a weak link, right? The Getty was a weak link in the system because it was as a target for us to attack and point out and draw attention to in a way that would be critical or damaging to their ability to maintain control. And when we bring that fight into a civilian realm or a even more public realm, such as the connection of various Hollywood personalities and entertainment personas to not only the pedophilia, satanic ritual, human sacrifice, underground Masonic Illuminati goings on, but we also now have a direct connection of the military to Hollywood, to Satanism, to pedophilia, and to underground ritual abuse, ritual human sacrifice on a broad level. So clearly this is a problem for them. And as we identify more and more people and locations that are connected to this network, you can see how easy it's going to be to root this thing out, because obviously if these periphery locations are connected, if the tunnels exist, then obviously anything that we can use to gain entrance is something. And if you can get the FBI to investigate this location, certainly it will lead to other locations. So obviously, well, FBI, of course, is a pseudonym. If we had a agency that was capable of doing that. I'm going to talk just a little bit briefly about Lookout Mountain, and then again, I'm going to ask Laura, if you've tuned in yet, to just go ahead and hurry up and call me on the phone. Oh, God, it scares me when people get involved with stuff, but I need to talk to her, and I need to explain some things to her before she gets into her story, because she has a ton of information to share regarding these details. Someone who's actually been to this location and is an insider in Hollywood in a big way. But, okay, Lookout Mountain Air Force Station is a former defense site, which is today a private residence in Laurel Canyon neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. The U.S. Air Force military installation produced motion pictures and still photographs for the United States Department of Defense and the Atomic Energy Commission from 1947 to 1969. The 100,000 square foot facility was built on 2.5 acres in 1941 as a World War II air defense center to coordinate Los Angeles area radar installations. When the studio was established in 1947, its purpose was kept secret. The studio consisted of one large soundstage, a film laboratory, 2 screening rooms, 4 editing rooms, an animation and still photo department, sound mixing studio, and numerous climate-controlled film vaults using the latest equipment. The studio could process both 35 millimeter and 16 millimeter color motion picture film, as well as black and white and color still photographs. It was declared a Los Angeles Historical Cultural Monument number 1098 in 2015. That's interesting. Now, when they talk about the nuclear stuff, basically the idea was that all of the film of the various nuclear explosions and what have you that were disseminated were filmed here and what have you. Now, obviously there's quite a bit more involved, but I suspect that what they're reporting of what they did there is probably a tiny amount of what there actually was. Now, it says here that in the 60s, Lookout Mountain was staffed by more than 250 military and civilian personnel. Okay, so it's capable of holding a significant amount of people. It had a decent-sized parking lot. And they employed many talented civilians as producers, writers, directors, cameramen, editors, and animators. Many of these old-timers worked at Warner Brothers, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Universal, and RKO Pictures. Okay? So they're very, very close to all of the major motion picture companies and television. It looks like quite a few other movies were actually based right on the area. They've got quite a few list of what they did. It was deactivated in '68, allegedly, and their equipment, everything was relocated to Norton. And it was sold as a private residence. It actually changed hands a couple times, but it's now connected to Jared Leto, of course. I wanted to talk about the connection to the. You see, this is the thing is that when we talk about 1947 and whatnot, obviously goes on much older than this. The stuff that goes on in Hollywood with the undergrounds. And when you talk about things that are built on the surface, these homes, very often they're built over locations that can gain access to these things that are already underground. Now, one of the things I'm going to try to show tonight is that if you take this particular residence, Jared Leto's home, actually, if you take Harry Houdini's home, which is actually very, very close to this residence that Jared Leto has now, and you draw a line directly to it, it draws a straight line all the way to the Getty, the Skirball Center, and if you continue that line on an eastward, a due east manner, you will be hitting Malibu, a certain facility, Getty facility in Malibu, as well as Point Magoo, which is the station. Oh, this is probably her now. Which is the station, of course, where they do the NASA launches, as well as chemtrail flights, as well as a big secret submarine base. Hey, is this you?
It's me.
Oh, okay, turn down your radio.
I turned it off.
Oh, good girl. All right, so y'all, first of all, how you doing?
Good. I'm fine.
Y'all anxious? A little bit?
What?
No? Anxiety
No,
tonight?
no.
Okay, good. All right.
Nope.
All right.
No.
Well, first of all, let me introduce you first, okay? Because you got a lot of work to do tonight. I mean, we got a lot of fun stuff to talk about, but I'll tell you, more keeps coming in. I'm seeing more stuff, and I'll tell you, I learned a lot about I did a little research on the Houdini house and what people think is the Houdini house and what really is the Houdini house. And it's like, oh, how about that? But all right, let me just throw it out there real quick, and then we can get into it because I got to spend a lot of time with you. But there's a home on, I guess, whatever it is, Santa Monica off of whatever that road is, where people think this is a Houdini house. There's a big gate and what have you, and it goes up on the side of the hill and what have you. But in the actuality, that house is nothing more than the former carriage house of the main house, which is on another hilltop, which actually burned down. And that carriage house does have an elevator, and it does have tunnels that run to the main house, which is now burned down, of course, which is up on a hill, which just happens to be right across the street from Jared Leto and his little fun little house. Yep. And you know what? And if you draw a straight
cabin too.
Yeah, and if you draw a straight line, you know where it goes right under the Getty, right under the Skirball Center, right under the Santa Monica Getty, and right to Naval Station at Point Magoo. Nice straight line.
God.
Nice straight line. And it runs completely underneath the Hollywood Hills. So what I'd like to know is I'd like to look and see who.
God.
If you draw a straight line, let's look and see who lives on that line.
Right.
And see who's hooked up. But as I said, 5 years ago, last November, all the wealthy and all the hooked up people are hooked up to this thing. And when you think of Harry Houdini, I mean, that goes way back.
Right.
So,
it was kind of like the old Hollywood. It was like an outpost, like they'd go hunting up there. There were hunting clubs. It was, the wilderness right above the city in the old silent era.
Uh-huh.
And that's what it goes back to. And some of those people are tied to Satanism. Um, and one thing I wanted to mention that I sort of hinted at last week is
We gotta let's introduce you first properly. Are you down with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, now Laura here obviously isn't just a caller. I mean, she's a fan of the show and all that, but she's a special fan. She is a movie producer because I went and Googled your name, and you've done at least 5 movies, which did pretty good. I think the worst one you ever did was called Kettle of Fish, and even that one got a 23. It got a 23 rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which isn't that bad.
You know what, though? We owned Manhattan that summer when we shot that film, and it was so much fun. And it was financed by Lazard Frere.
Oh, interesting.
Lazard.
Yeah.
The Rockefellers of France.
Oh, God. All right. Well,
so we get into those bloodlines again.
Story. All right. Well, suffice it to say, and I wish we could talk about this other project that we've been talking about, but whatever, you can, because I don't know if that would taint the story or what, but, Anyway, suffice it to say, you're a serious Hollywood producer who has some credits and has.
Well, no, I'm not a Hollywood.
Well, you're a producer.
I'm an independent.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Yeah, let's not use that word Hollywood.
The independent film, it's anti-Hollywood in many ways, but we all want to get the audience. So
yeah.
But Hollywood is very corporate. And I spent 1976 through 86 living there. It was sort of like my master's degree. I wanted to get out of the academic cradle and really get into the work. And it was sort of a Zen experience of saying, nope, I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't want this. So, you do other jobs while you're trying to make all that happen, especially when you're starting out in your 20s. And one thing I did was I worked at a graphics company in Burbank, and we printed the LAPD's union newspaper, Los Angeles Police Protective League, LAPPL. It was called The Thin Blue Line. And through that, I interviewed a lot of city council people, the DA, Ira Reiner, Pilibosian, the Attorney General, Duke Magin wrote me this beautiful letter, and everybody read my stuff. And I just got a break from this lieutenant who just thought I might be the right one to sort of send out there and kind of unsettle them. And so I interviewed a lot of captains, and they told me at that time that the Satanism was real. And I was brought up Unitarian, so I just said, whatever, these people are deluded. But they said to me, no, Laura, it's really serious. And they explained certain things. So I kind of listened. It was, when the Geraldo satanic panic thing, and now I know that was all, sort of a cover to call people's attention to something and make it like a
joke.
A joke. And so the LAPD told me, no, this is going on. And they mentioned things about Laurel Canyon, but it goes on in New York too. It's a lot of parks. They do these, animal ritual killings. And so I just wanted to mention that, because then when I went to interview Mayor Tom Bradley, the icebreaker was, I said, well, I met you 10 years ago backstage at a B.B. King concert. Yeah. And he just started laughing. And his assistant was Phil DePoyan, who was an Armenian. And at that time, I was working feverishly on trying to get attention for the Armenian genocide. And I had written a script with Alec Ashishin, who went on to direct Madonna. Gag me.
Yeah. Okay.
In Boston, they used to say I was the improper Bostonian said I was Madonna before Madonna. And, 20 years ago, I thought that was sort of a compliment. But now I'm like, are you kidding me? And people get infested. It's not like they're born that way. But, basically, I mean, she was kind of a street prostitute, frankly. And when you look into the background of some of these people, like Katy Perry, she's a very intelligent woman, but she's obviously deeply mind controlled. And so when you meet these artists face to face, some of them are despicable, and other ones are just victims. You know, I can't even say they're survivors because they're under it. And Katy Perry, I mean, you look at the Super Bowl rituals, and you know, it's all just sigil magic. And
well, this is an opportunity, real quick, just to throw something out there about the Leto brothers. Okay, you know, because, and I just want to say that there's a lot of women out there, obviously, that think that he's so cute and they're so nice. They love the band and the movies, and trust me, there's people going to be. They're going to be angry with me because of what we're doing to their heartthrob.
Well, don't shoot the messenger, guys.
Yeah, but
we're just trying to give you information.
Now, Jared Leto and his brother Shannon or whatever, their mother was a single mother. I tried to look and see what I could find out about the family, and all I see is the single mother that raised them, did her best to raise her two boys, but so where's this connection? What, you know, they seem like you said, they were probably reasonable, normal people, but somewhere along the line, they sold their souls. And you look at this, you know, like the symbolism that they like to use, it's sort of a triangle with a slash through it, which is sort of synonymous with a couple things. A, it looks sort of like the Eye of Horus type pyramid thing, and B, it's also reminiscent of the symbol used by the trilateral, which are the which means which a trilateral is basically a triangle like that has three bars going through it, horizontal bars. They call that the trilateral, and that's has to do with aliens. And when you talk about these, like the whole 30-second to Mars jump room on Sepulveda and all that, you know, it all kind of ties in. But the point I'm just trying to make.
Well, it's also the man-boy love, isn't it? The triangles interconnected.
Yeah. Well, there's that, and there's also a recuperation. Was it Al-Anon? I think uses that symbol too. Also, you know, the
right.
alcohol.
And we talked about how some of these, you know, groups that are trying to help people with sobriety, you know, they do wonderful work, obviously, but there are other opportunities, you know, to use that to exploit people and collect the loosh. And also maybe and sacrifice them because nobody's going to question.
Someone had a relapse, so someone must have slipped that person some heroin and they killed themselves. And oh well, they're under doctor's supervision. They don't need an autopsy, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, Phil Hoffman.
Yeah, there you go. There's a good one.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, who I worked with and absolutely adored this guy. And I know that it didn't go down the way people said it did because I also know his brother, Gordy Hoffman, who happened to be my son's AA sponsor when he was in the hospital.
Wow.
But I had been the facilitator of a panel for Washington, D.C. Women in Film, and Gordy was one of the panelists. So I had made that connection with him, you know, years before. Uh-huh. And I just know that people are targeted. And, you know, I will say this also, Stephen, that although some people kind of tiptoe into selling their soul and before they know what they've done, they're there, and there's all kinds of contempt, you know, self-contempt. But then there are other people that are born into it.
Well, let me just take over just for a second here, because I want to paint this picture. You know, having to do with these undergrounds and what have you, because we can come up with story after story and anecdote after anecdote, which we're going to do, which will basically just fill in the picture and show you more aspects of this picture we're trying to show. But when you look at someone that's inadvertent and what have you, like for instance, this particular location, we know it was built as an Air Force thing. We know that there's probably structures that they're not talking about, that are underground, that are not being mentioned. and of course the tunnels and the connecting every, it's just like a kind of an open secret of the connecting tunnels and what have you. So here we have Jared Leto on Conan O'Brien and talking about this publicly. He's on the public records. If you go on Wiki, you'll see right there it says that he owns this property now. And yet at the same time, it will say that it's still under the control of the Air Force. So in other words, when this guy buys this thing, and I think Katy Perry had a connection to it also, as well as the Getty family. J. Paul Getty's last wife had a connection to it.
Eileen Getty.
Eileen, I think that was his fifth wife. Now, the thing is that he knew what he was getting into. He paid $5 million for this property, which was listed for $6 million. So they made it available to him. And when they do these things, it comes with a contract, because this house has been used. It's been used as a party house for all these years in Hollywood to lure in people for whatever it is they do. And it's just like when I went down and did all the astral stuff on the Getty, we said that there was all these parties. It was like a big rave. The elite people would come down there. And you want to know, how do they get there? This is how they get there. They don't drive up to the Getty. They drive up to one of these peripheral residences and go underground and hook up. And next thing you know, they're in some big giant room that you don't know where the hell it is, but guess where it is? Yes, and this is, it's like, it's a big secret, but they can't hide it. These people can't hide this stuff. They've never been that good at hiding it. It's just like Jared Leto with his stupid name for his band. He probably thinks that's really cute, 30 Seconds to Mars, and we're so stupid that we're not supposed to know what it means.
Well, I want to just, somebody's innocent before proven guilty, and I feel like he may not know, like, that there's all these cultural things. And one thing that this place was known for, that Dave McGowan talks about in Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, is CIA cultural creation. So a lot of it was about social engineering, and a lot of this, some of the latest technology that we have now was created at that house. I mean,
well, that makes sense.
I can't tell you what I felt when I was at that house. And when I got cut off last week, I kept talking because I didn't know I was cut off for about a minute. And what I was talking about was going down into the bowels of that house. I had my son, and I was freaked. I didn't let him know it, but he knew that,
All right,
my kids
talk
all
about
know,
it. Describe it. Let's do a little visual tour. Okay, we know that it's a kind of industrial-looking building, and that penthouse, so-called penthouse, is really an aerial lookout thing for, right? We know. I mean, originally that's what it was for.
He had the whole penthouse
with a lookout tower, big windows, which probably made it really easy for them to.
And I stayed up there.
And they probably made it.
I slept there when he was in the hospital.
Those windows made it really easier for them to beam in stuff too.
I don't know what they were trying to do to me, but I'm so hard-headed. I don't, and my dad.
Well, you have TI stuff going on,
who I think was CIA. I mean, he obviously was CIA, but I can, you don't figure these things out for a while because it's not like they talk about it. But I can explain a little bit about my family background and why we might be targeted. And I think my son has such a juicy soul. I mean, I told the story of how he was born and everything.
Let's go
I
back
think
to the
that they were going to sacrifice him.
I believe it. I think they were setting up, and that's part of that big picture of how they use these so-called rehab centers, and like you said, also AA and what have you, to provide the guinea pigs or the sacrificial lambs. And of course, the more valuable they are, the better the sacrifice. But let's go back to the bowels, because this is what they don't want.
Okay.
Right? All right. So you go anyway. You go. Remember, we'll start at the beginning.
So
you go in the front.
Come into. It's an automatic door.
Yeah.
You're going up Laurel Canyon Boulevard, and you go past Lookout Mountain, and there's Wonderland. There's a little elementary school there also, and just about half a mile up or so, you come to 8945, or it's sometimes listed 8935 Wonderland, and so that you don't realize how big this thing is. It's surrounded by an automatic door, so you have to come in through security, and there's a huge parking lot. So automatically, that's kind of a red flag. Like, what's this huge parking lot?
It'll take about 100 cars, it looks like, in that parking lot at least.
Because, as you said, when it was in full force for the Air Force, there were 250 people that worked there.
Yeah.
But when you come into the door, it's almost like there's a little entryway, a little vestibule, and then there's a little kitchen, and then you walk through the checkerboard floor, and to your left is all the windows that look out onto the pool, and the pool has a waterfall. It's kind of a grotto type thing, and then you just continue walking, and you go into all of these various rooms. So I think it said it was 8 bedrooms, 12 bathrooms. Well, I don't know how many rooms are in there, but it's just never ending. And as I said, I was studying Kubrick because I was working with an Apollo 7 astronaut. So I was trying to figure out the whole, space thing.
Uh-huh.
And I think that Kubrick probably did some of his work in that house. And I really felt him kind of walking with me, holding me by the hand saying,
go this way.
Let me show you. So the big archways, and if you look at The Shining, and I did this again today just to sort of prepare, I looked at the pictures, and it was called Outlook Hotel in the film.
Overlook.
So you can see the lookout. And, Kubrick was a genius. I mean, he was like 200 IQ, and everything has meaning in his films. And what The Shining is, what people have recently in the last 10 years, and part of this is the optics, Stephen, which you know about.
Uh-huh.
They were able to see that the moon landing lighting was artificial.
Okay.
So,
well, let's not go there anyway.
No, that's another thing. But, the point is that they did all kinds of secret stuff at this house.
Uh-huh.
And when I walked in there, I immediately felt Kubrick, and I immediately saw the architecture that was similar to what he had in the film The Shining.
It's okay. Just for you just. I'm sorry for distracting you because I'm just doing it myself. But all right, I see something here real quick. These guys were big users of the film technology and the optics technology, but I realize now that they had utilized these other companies, of which there were quite a few down there in El Segundo, what have you, but even Orange County. See, that's where I would come in. My company or one of the companies I worked for would have made those special lenses. I know one of the companies I worked for made all the lenses for Panavision, and another company I worked for, we made all the lenses for Industrial Light and Magic, which allowed them to make the first Star Wars and all the thick layer of film. It was a super catadioptic lens of some sort, which basically means it had a pair of opposing cylinders, which created a big square hole, if you will. That's how that was the secret. Can you
there was
so
that? Much technology going. Well, I
okay, yeah, but okay.
I'm not a techie, but I do understand quantum physics, and I understand some things about lenses because I was really into astronomy and did some work there, but. I think the point that we're trying to make is that there are underground tunnels.
Yep.
What the heck goes on there?
Okay, so how did you?
Let's
went
shine
down,
a light on this.
When you were upstairs, you see all these rooms and stuff, and then what is there? There's staircases that go down or elevators?
Yeah. So my son's room, you go to the far end of the house, and there's a little kitchen there, which is sort of the main kitchen. Mm-hmm. And there's a patio off there where the pool is and where the driveway is, sort of the rear driveway, which you can just drive one car up to, which, I started doing. So I didn't have to come through the front gate. And and then you walk up the stairs. There are these like glass doors, and you walk up the stairs, and that's where, if you look at it online, that top piece with all the windows, that was my son's loft. And I said to him, this would cost like $6,000 a month, just for your room. Every room would cost it. And I couldn't drill down. I couldn't get a straight answer out of anybody about what the hell the price was.
It was more.
Because I wasn't paying anything.
It was $50,000. Come on. It was $50,000.
Well, I think they were going to, they were like tabbing it up like, take you out.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. Now,
and I think I'm also a lightning rod for these people. And I gave everybody love and pieced them out. I mean, you have to understand that in the moment, I was sort of in two worlds. Like I knew what was going on the one hand, because I'm highly intuitive, and I think we all are, but everything in my life was feeding into what the hell this place was.
Okay, well, let me just say something.
And that's,
when you're at the big parking lot at the top, it's sort of like the residential commercial structure, and then there's sort of it terraces down, and then below there's the big studios and the sound stages and stuff like that. So that's like
right
further down.
So
how many floors
so if
is
you
this
go
thing?
further down, my oldest son's place was at the very top. So then let's just continue going down to another level where there are, you might call it a rumpus room or something, a den.
Party area.
And then there are other bedrooms. And one guy, and I think he told me his people came over on the Mayflower, because I never gave a damn about bloodlines. I mean, I was American. Who cared about bloodlines? But I realized when you get into the Freemasonry stuff, and that they're all about bloodlines.
Of course.
The Mormons.
Oh, hell yeah.
So this man had all these alligators. He was Mr. Alligator Man. It's so crazy, because now we go into some woo with the Anunnaki and all that. But I'll just leave that there for now, that this guy had all these alligators.
You get a lizard fetish going on. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, reptile.
And then my youngest son, who was not in rehab, but big brother got little brother, this incredible, I mean, my God.
Yeah, who's responsible for that?
Like in a daze. I couldn't make them understand. I couldn't burst the bubble and say, guys, do you know what's going on here? And this is before my son's accident. Remember, it happened like 3 months after my first visit there. So that my youngest, if you look on the at the picture, his was the lower piece with all the windows that overlooked Los Angeles. And then there were, maybe there were 8 or 12 people there at one time. And I said, gee, are they all heroin people? And, my son and his girlfriend laughed and said, no, they all have various addictions. And I sort of watched an AA meeting. I didn't want to join in because I didn't know what the hell was going on. But I did, give everybody my appreciation, and I did ask the managers about the history of the building, and they confirmed that it was, owned by the Gettys, and then they decided to turn it in. It was a party house. They leased it to a rock star, and I don't know who that is. I never got anybody to give me a name. But I think that's when I was up there at 21 years old in 1976. And then the story was, the party line was that they leased it to these people to do this rehab center. And it said online it was $50,000 a month. I mean, these people were all about the Benjamins. And I look back on it now, and even though I pieced them out and I loved them out, I know what was going on there. And it's really scary. I mean, it's not scary.
Let's
go
what?
Down. You got to get beyond your fear.
Let's go down more. So did you get to go down in the basement?
So then, yes. So about the third time I was there in January when I was staying there for, I was staying in Los Angeles for something, and so I went to see him the third time. He took me down into the bowels, and it was like, there were like rooms like almost like makeup stalls or something, or like bathroom stalls. And then there was this, changing rooms. I don't know how to explain it. And then the theater, which you can see on the newsreel, if you look at that old newsreel, I'm sitting in the theater where he set up his sound studio because he's a sound engineer. And I realized that we're in the theater that I'm watching where Marilyn Monroe, John Ford, Henry Fonda, Henry Ford, Bob Cummings, John Wayne, and they all had top secret clearance, and they were all watching some films. And when you think about what film really is, you're in a dark room, and light and shadows are affecting your optic nerve. Now, you can speak more to that, Stephen, because I'm still trying to figure out how that works.
Yeah, well, we don't really need to get into the mechanics of how they do that, but suffice it to say, it's real and it does happen. But what's kind of important here, because like, for instance, we connected this to Houdini, which goes really far back, but there's all these. One of the things I didn't really mention, we did very briefly, and you did too just now, is that there was intimate connection with the Hollywood, not just the production facilities and the studios on a large corporate scale, but also the big talent. For instance, Jimmy Stewart, I found out, was an actual brigadier general of reserve Air Force Reserve, a brigadier general. That's not a token thing. And he spent a lot of time at the studio, but there's nobody that spent more time at the studio than Bob Hope. And they practically were his private film studio, because whenever he went to Vietnam, whenever he went on his Christmas tour, whenever he went anywhere, these were the people that tagged along and filmed everything and produced all the film and distributed it. This were Bob Hope's go-to guys in the military that handled everything for him. And we know what Bob Hope is. Now, we got to mention Kathy O'Brien, all right, just for the listeners.
Right, but let's help the listeners understand that
just real quick,
the USO
listeners,
was created.
Okay, just Kathy O'Brien, everybody. CATHYOBRI. What? EN? O'Brien? Anyway, yeah. Kathy O'Brien. Find her, read her book, okay? See what she says about Bob Hope. Okay, go on. I'm sorry, go.
But also there's Thanks for the Memories by Bryce Taylor, a.k.a. Sue Ford, who talks more specifically about Bob Hope. And that's available online for free. I think I sent you the link. Bob Hope was scum of the earth. He was like Jimmy Savile in
he
UK.
was. Totally. All right. And if you don't know who Jimmy Savile was... And he was
actually an agent for the Queen.
Oh, of course he was. He was British, wasn't he?
Bob
British.
Hope.
Yeah. There you go. There's that Rothschild connection. Now, back to so you're into this big, well, we're not going to call it a bunker, but we'll just say it's a relatively large underground sound studio, probably, with lots of little changing rooms, what have you, for various actors, and I assume they could set this up.
Stephen, this was really not underground yet. I never went underground. I kept asking. There are vaults under there. I told everybody. There are these. So what the heck is in those vaults? Of course, nobody's going to tell me, But where the theater was right next to the heliport, if you can believe. There's a heliport, and then across from that was my youngest son's room. So if you look online, you can sort of put it together. But this theater was in the lower level, because there's all these levels. Right. But I never got down, and nor did I want to go down. I didn't want to go down there. So the thing that really clinched this for me after my son's accident was he had told me when we were in the theater, there was sort of this tunnel thing, but I wasn't about to go in there. Are you kidding me? And he said he had found a fibula bone. Well, a fibula bone, that's exactly the bone he had to amputate after the accident.
That's interesting.
And there's all kinds of witchcraft with that, with a fibula bone.
That's interesting.
And so when he allows himself to talk about it with me, he says, I had to, it's like the Bible cast out. He had to pay a price. And they tried to kill him. I mean, he even had this weird experience where all these Facebook friends said that they saw a body that looked just like his, like lying on the, it wasn't him, but it could have been him. So that's where we get into the woo, and I don't know how to connect all that, but I'm happy to just kind of put some stuff out there and let the listeners make sense of it in their own way.
Well, you've been inside, you saw the black and white checkerboards and all that, and your son was there, and this is adequate, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. Like, for instance, we touch on the Bob Hope stuff, and I know you got some fun anecdotes that you could share with us about that, perhaps, before we go on to something else, huh?
Well, I met Bob Hope when I was, I think I was about 26, and I was on assignment because I worked for Burbank Business Today. It was a magazine that we created at the graphics company, and we ended up getting the award in Washington, D.C. for Best Chamber of Commerce magazine, and I did all the cover stories. So my job was to get Bob Hope to hold up this, to take a photo with Burbank Business Today. We put it on the cover and get it on the Tonight Show, which we did. We had Johnny Carson raise it up. So there I am, and I'll be very honest.
Wow.
I had on a short skirt. I was hot. I mean, I was really, and I can't explain it until I started learning about, the stuff from Kathy O'Brien and Bryce Taylor and other people. But it was something weird. It wasn't just lecherous. This man wanted to jump my bones and had to be controlled. And he was 80 something at that time. And I didn't, I'm used to, that's just sort of the way it is for women, young women. But this was weird. There was something strange about this. And that's where I'm trying to figure out a theory where people almost get infected with a virus, like something overtakes them, and it's like they're not thoroughly themselves anymore, and there's this whole other maybe Draco connection. I don't know, but I have seen
I think you're being very sympathetic, and that's fine. Well, because obviously we'd like to think that we always want to think the best of our fellow humans, and not think that they don't belong in humanity like the rest of us. So I suppose ultimately everybody is a victim of some sort of mind control that leads them into that. Hell, even not Anton LaVey, but the other one, the one that's
don't mention his name. Don't say his name.
Yeah, that asshole.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Anyway, he went through all sorts of trauma when he was a child too, and he did the hurting animals and all that crap and molesting his maid and things like that. Well,
he had a terrible mother.
Well,
I actually had an exchange with him on Sean Stone's YouTube, because I met Sean Stone, and I loved Sean Stone. It was before anybody knew who he was. Everybody knew who he was, but he hadn't really come out. Yeah. He was in his early 20s, and so when he interviewed this lieutenant, which is tied to the Embarcadero San Francisco daycare situation.
You talking about Aquino? That guy?
Well, you're not pronouncing it right, but don't say it, because he has nothing better to do than to bother everybody.
Other assholes that even more.
But yeah, that's who I'm thinking. That's who I'm talking about. And his wife's name, right?
Well, yeah, of course.
Name was
the one. Lilith. But you know what? We're supposed to make peace with them eventually, Lilith. That's where this is leading to. The ultimate war is eventually going to lead to Lilith. She's definitely up there.
Well, Stephen, Lilith was probably done wrong. I mean, these are all allegories, but they're energetically, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And it's not just men. There's a lot of women, and I mentioned Frances Lear, Norman Lear's wife, and she was very Lilith, and she was angry, and I bet she had a right to be. And so we have to. It's complicated truth. That's what I call it.
There's something that not too many people will
I sold 2 films to Harvey Weinstein, almost 3. Harvey Weinstein was good to me. And yet I knew there were issues there, but I never dreamed in a million years. See, that's what happens. Now we are really seeing how ugly and horrible it is. By the way, Hunter S. Thompson's attorney was somebody that I had dealings with because he was a Boston attorney. Mm-hmm. And there are just a lot of...
when you say Hunter S. Thompson's attorney...
It's a cult that you're not
Is this the guy that they portray in the movie? As your attorney, I recommend you take this. Take 2 of these right now. Remember the movie?
I can't verify that, but all I know is that this man, and again, I'm not going to name him, but those people who like to dogpile, they can probably search it out. But and again, another very charismatic, very intelligent. See, that's the Luciferian thing. And remember, Lucifer is god of the airwaves. So that shit is all over the music.
Well, hence the triangle symbol that Jared Leto's using the air symbol. Huh? For his band.
Well, there's sigil, and I bet you know more about that than me. But yeah, there are symbols, and I think...
Let's talk about Sean Stone.
Go ahead.
Okay, hold on.
I love Sean Stone. He's so
I
smart.
know. All right, listen. I've met Sean Stone. I had lunch with him. He bought me a nice burger at the little place outside of their studio right there. I've had him on my show. I like the guy. Okay, he's a nice guy, but this is the problem. I've been hearing everyone say Illuminati, and finally when he was on one of my buddies' programs, and I called into the program. I go, Sean, once and for all, you need to sell this for me. It says, are you or are you not Illuminati? And he says, yeah, I'm Illuminati. Yeah. And it's like, oh, Sean, we can't be friends now. That's not...
I know. And you know what? He even admitted it. I don't know whether he was talking to Alex Jones, and Alex got on him and said, oh, Sean saying, like to go to these parties. So it starts out where you're curious, right? And then if you are lured in, like, thank God I did not stay at that party. As I said last week, it turned into an orgy. I had no idea what was going on there.
Last week?
What did I know?
Last week?
I was 21 years old.
Oh, 21, okay.
I told the story about how I went up there to this party.
Well, let me just say this. When you were telling amyl nitrate, when you were starting to mention the amyl nitrate, it clicked in my head, because if anybody knows what the amyl nitrate is for, you'll know that it's going to be used in an orgy type environment, and is very popular with the gay people. So,
right. I knew it was popular with gays, and I didn't partake in it.
Now, but
that's
I'll say this
about doing, and that's when I left.
I want to say this about amyl nitrate, because I used to keep it around in my lab, because it's the only antidote for cyanide. Did you know that?
No.
Yes,
I did not.
I actually had a prescription for the amyl nitrate, because it is in fact, if you want to go get amyl nitrate, you just have to tell your doctor that you're working with cyanide and you need it as an antidote, because that's what it's for. If you get exposed to a fume of cyanide gas when, like you're in the whatever, that's the only thing that's going to bring you back is the amyl nitrate.
Huh.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
We would keep we take the little vial. It's like what it is. It's a liquid, but it's in a glass, like a small glass tube, and they wrap it like a little cotton sock, a little tiny thing, and you break it, and the stuff soaks into the sock, and then of course you inhale the vapor, the smell, and that's what restarts your heart or whatever. And so obviously during gay sex, apparently it's really does the trick, huh? But I would tape one of those things.
Well, I remember Teddy Kennedy was into them. I remember reading something where so politicians, and this is where you get into the brownstoning and where they blackmail people, and that's why our whole government, almost our entire government, is blackmailed. And we've got to have some kind of truth and reconciliation, and I think that's why you're seeing a lot of these politicians step down. They're not running again, because what I hope is happening is that the white hat military people are saying, you fucks just, your lives are ruined. Just go away.
Let me share something.
Don't run for office.
Okay. All right. You bring something up that I have to share. It's not really related, and we got to get back to Sean Stone and all the other fun stuff. But I got a call this morning from a guy in South Korea. Hey, how's it going? I don't know if you're listening or not, but he's a guy that he wrote an article that appeared on Henry Mankow some time back that was all about the Getty and my campaign and all this stuff. And at the time, it was very hard hitting, and he actually had retracted it or something like that. But because he was concerned about getting whacked, but he's seeing now that the Q is starting to pick this up. It would appear that Q is starting to make hints of things that might suggest possibly the Getty. So, and as I mentioned to somebody earlier,
Whoa.
All of the people that think that Q is compromised, Q's an insider, Q's this, COINTEL, whatever, it doesn't really matter because we're driving this boat. Okay? Right. We're the ones that are driving it. We're steering, we're accelerating, and it goes where we want it to go. So if they're talking about the Getty, it's because that's what we want. And now they're going to be talking about Jared Leto and Lookout Mountain Laboratory, et cetera, because we're talking about it and the tunnels and what have you. But on a grand scale, again, like I said, and I've never really looked, I mean, I've been looking at this for a long time, but it's just, we're getting so many dots that it's impossible not to connect. Truly, it's almost a straight line between Houdini, Leto's house, and the Getty and Point Mugu. And that's, wow. Yeah, it's like, wow. You look at that.
Lines.
And the whole thing goes right underneath the mountains. It's not underneath the residential area. Malibu, that whole coastline, because those mountains in Malibu go due west, east to west, and it becomes the Hollywood Hills, Laurel Canyon, Mulholland, all that. Santa Monica Mountain, the whole 9 yards. And all this crap that we're talking about runs right underneath the backbone of that mountain ridge. And of course it does. Of course it does, right? Of course they're going to build.
So why can't we see things like on Google Earth, or what? How can we? There must be technology where we can see.
Well, we
can't. Because there's tunnels. There's ancient tunnels also, that go back, God knows how many.
Well, we can superimpose this stuff and what have you, but the thing is that we know there's reptile tunnels. We know there's modern civil defense tunnels. We know there's these things that the Masons dug, and what have you. And there's going to be talk of, say, like in L.A., the history of the city of L.A., they'll say, oh, well, there was bootlegging, or, oh, there's World War II and we're worried about the Japanese, or, oh, Howard Hughes did this because he was afraid of this or that. And there's all this crap there, and it definitely is not being maintained. But we, at the same time, we do know that there's huge, ridiculous tunnels capable of semi-trucks, multiple dual lanes of semi-trucks going to locations like the Getty and elsewhere, and probably all the way from the out to Edwards Air Force Base and things like that. And
right.
So in other words, it's not all tube trains. It's also conventional semi-truck traffic. And again, with the people that are when you consider the number of containers that are coming into the port of LA and San Pedro and what have you, just here on the West Coast, and when you consider that so many of those containers are never getting inspected, and they're going right into these tunnels, who knows what the hell are on those things? So and of
right,
course,
and the key is that museums have that, as you said, they're
yeah.
they don't have to search what's in the containers.
They don't have to search
So
those
they
things.
suspect that there are children under museums in Pennsylvania. I know there are some hot spots. And, of course, if you look at Dave Paulides' work, 411 and disappearing people, you can make some connections there. And with Montauk, apparently there were hundreds of children. I mean, who does this kind of thing?
Yeah, well,
People who don't understand that people have souls because they don't have souls.
Well, that's
so
exactly
they just
what they
look
want.
At a child.
That's what they want. They want that soul. That's what makes it valuable,
Right.
is that soul. Anyway, but let's. I don't know about what can you tell us more about Sean? Anything insignificant happened other than Shoddy boy?
Well, when he brought that Lieutenant Queen, I'll call him Queen.
Oh yeah, Queeno.
Yeah, because he loves to hear his name mentioned. But when I was 19, I was in San Francisco at the Art Institute, and I used to pass him on the street.
Call him Eyebrows.
He and his
call him Eyebrows.
Yeah, and it's really we're making light, and a lot of times we laugh at things because that's the only way you keep your vibration up. But this is real serious business with this guy because
well, let me just throw this out there real quick.
He doesn't get mentioned a lot.
Jared Leto's brother, that's who it reminds me of. When you look at Jared Leto's brother, Shannon, or whatever the hell his name is, he's got those eyebrows. And I'm thinking, what are you trying to look like, Queeno there? The Queen there? Mr. Eyebrow?
Yeah.
It's interesting, huh?
Yeah, and I just want to throw out the Memphis 3 and Johnny Depp and the people that supported those guys. That's something to look at, and also the daycare. What was it called?
McMartin Preschool.
Yeah, McMartin, exactly.
Exactly.
And we know that Ted Gunderson, who was head of the LA FBI, who I remember my guys at LAPD talking about, but he was a mixed bag because he talked to the Queen like every day. So there's programming, and I wish I understood more. You can see even in the Manchurian
I don't want to judge about
Ted,
but there's a lot of people out there that totally hate Ted and call him a pedo. But at the same time, you gotta have to take everything with a grain of salt. I believe what he says about the searchers or whatever they are. Is that what they called? Or no, the gatherers?
Finders.
Yeah.
The finders.
CIA guys that snatched the children. But it's almost like one of the reasons why he knew so much about the pedophiles is maybe because he had a little bit of it in himself, perhaps.
Well, I think that, it's like Vice Cops or, you're in that world and that's where I do give human slack because sometimes you kind of fall into it and then there's so much self-contempt that you don't think you could be redeemed and you just go deeper and deper into that world.
But like that, yeah. Seriously,
I think that Ted Gunderson has a lot of truth and everybody has some bullshit. I mean, I listen to people and I've become very discriminating, but I like the cacophony of voices, and I think it's up to us to discern what's going on, and that's how I raised my kids. I tried to give them that sword of discernment. So I allowed them to watch television, and I would watch movies with them, and we'd deconstruct it. So there are ways to, and by the way, cannabis is like, Kathy O'Brien talks about this, that it keeps you out of the mind control. And so, that's why so many young people, when I was young, they got into smoking weed because we were all about the anti-establishment. It's very difficult to explain what was going on back then, but I see the social engineering. And when I was 15, my boyfriend, his father was CIA. His father was vice president of Chiquita Banana. So that's United Fruit.
Okay, he was NSA.
His father was very suave. It's like a James Bond thing. I mean, we did not know back then, just like you, Steve. You thought they were cool. They were heroes until the guy told you the story about Honduras. And then you said, that was your big awakening. And you said, oh, my God. Yeah. And I had that with Sandy Hook and the Boston bombing. it was meeting Jerry Sandusky that woke me up, and that's what led me to all of this pedophilia nonsense, because I fell down that rabbit hole of the Franklin cover-up, and I was petrified. I was going on these websites, and I was like, oh, my God. And that's what also led to the breakup of my marriage, like 30 years, because it got too, he couldn't
You were unevenly
process.
yoked.
He said it.
Yeah. You became unevenly yoked.
And meanwhile, he went to Harvard Divinity School. So where are you, bro? You know?
Yeah. Wow, that's a bummer. Kind of happened to me, too.
It happens. We're all, most
you're
of us,
going,
probably
holy.
A lot of people that are listening.
9/11 was sort of like that also, because everything changed so rapidly after 9/11, the wake-up process. I mean, I know that was like a holy crap moment, and it didn't stop. It continued. I mean, I completely stopped watching CNN. I completely stopped watching, I practically turned off the TV, and I stopped reading the newspaper. And I read the complete newspaper and while watching CNN and the C-SPAN every morning before I went into the office. And that's what I was doing on 9/11.
Right. I was a news junkie, too.
Yeah.
And you look at those buildings. Look, I'm the granddaughter and daughter of builders. And I worked for the biggest builder in Boston who did the good work on the Big Dig. And I said to him, my father was gone, so I couldn't ask my father or my grandfather, but I knew that was a controlled demolition, like you did.
Yeah.
And a number of us did. But that's where we talk about mind control and the Orwellian corporate media that controlled the narrative. But that, we can do a whole other piece on that, another piece. But do you want to talk about the lizards and the lizard people?
Yeah.
Because I sent you that article from 1932.
Well, I don't really want to talk. Right now, I think what everybody really wants to hear is your little stories and anecdotes and experience. And I know there's a lot of people you don't want to mention by name, and I don't really want to talk about Sandusky per se right now, but and Sean, just what can we say about Sean? Bob Hope, though, and any of these other characters, I think would certainly help paint the picture, because obviously we're kind of focusing on the whole Jared Leto house and what have you, but it's up to you. I mean, the Sandusky thing.
Okay, well let's
is too. It's a big deal.
Yeah,
too.
Let's save that. But Bob Hope is key here, because it leads to the Bushes, because Prescott Bush was a banker for the Nazis. Why don't people know this? And by the way, some people know about Prescott, but his father, Samuel Bush, sold Remington rifles to both sides of the Civil War. And that's where we have to, I think, create a headline: Death Cult. We're dealing with a death cult. These people want death and destruction. The bankers eat children. Sorry,
Speaking of death cult, we should also mention real quick, Gettysburg is named after the Getty family.
Oh, my God. And I stayed in Gettysburg.
Yeah.
And I felt the ghosts. Because more men died at Gettysburg. What was it? Hundreds of thousands, I think, right?
Yeah. They're still
or something.
They're still harvesting those souls over there. That's right.
It's
a very popular
and
place.
Laura Eisenhower, I absolutely adore her. I love it. She gets these downloads, and she just did a brilliant interview with Alfred Lavermont Weber, by the way. It just came out, I think, yesterday. And so she, of course, has that bloodline thing with her great-grandfather, who warned us about who apparently made this treaty with ETs. But I don't know whether you want to go into the woo, because some people just love it, and other people, they reach cognitive dissonance and they can't handle it. So we can stay more.
The best thing to focus on, I think, is just your own personal experiences, because it's sort of like my book. It's just I talk about things that I saw and things that I experienced. I try not to put too much of my conjecture in there, or reiterate what someone else says. All
right, so let me go into this one little anecdote here.
All right.
That this was after. After the house. So this was October I was in Los Angeles because the Directors Guild of America has this film independent forum. So I had never stayed at the Roosevelt Hotel because it's quite pricey, but I happened to get this amazing deal, and it was right down the street from the DGA, so I decided to go for it, and I had this, great situation there. And my son, the oldest son that I've been talking about, he had a friend that he wanted me to meet. So I invited her over, and within a couple of minutes, she started, it must have been, again, it was meant to be, but somehow she trusted me. She knew I knew these things. So her grandfather was the head of the High Freemasons of the downtown Los Angeles Masonic Temple. And her brother was being initiated, indoctrinated, or, he was going through some ritual like that night, I think it was. And she was telling me she was worried about it. And she kept saying to him, you don't have to do this. And so she knew she was losing him. So you lose people. Like maybe we sort of lost John Stone, and it's sad, and it makes me want to cry.
No.
But
we lost the guy that was that Getty recruit. Lost him. Remember?
Who's that?
Jim, or not, the guy that was the trust fund manager of the Getty. They were recruiting him to the Templars, and he was all with us until he went off to Malta and did the ceremony or whatever over there. And when he came back, he was one of them.
Oh, yes, right. You talk about it in your book, yeah.
Yeah.
People change, and that is the important thing to understand here, and you can't help them. You can't save them. But the Freemasons, there's like the 33rd degree, but there's more degrees above that. And when you get to 33, apparently they ask you, like, do you believe in Jesus or spit on this Bible here? And if you spit on the Bible, you go higher up. So that's where it becomes a satanic thing. And as you laid out in Elders of Zion, they infiltrated the Freemasons, and that's why it's a big problem. And that's why JFK said, there's a secret society. And J. Edgar Hoover even said that, by the way, there was a big male prostitute ring right around Wonderland in the late 60s, and J. Edgar Hoover used to go up there, which is kind of a funny image of,
Uh-huh. Well, and John Holmes.
And so they compromised
there, right?
people.
Did John Holmes live up there?
And yeah. And then we can talk about, who of the stars, the music stars of the late 60s had parents or fathers that were military intelligence. And as you and Terry were talking about last night, it was one of the big missions of this place was to infiltrate the anti-war movement, because, again, we're dealing with a death cult. And a lot of that has to do with military, right? Those are the people that go into the military. I mean, and then you can go to the snuff films and what was really going on at Wonderland. What films were they processing? And I would tell people to go to Abel Danger, Field McConnell's website, because he's an aviation expert, and he's figured out a much bigger piece of this whole thing, which has to do with betting and gambling on death. And because when you really look at it, one of the big problems with our culture right now is we have a gambling addiction. We have a gaming addiction.
Uh-huh. Well, there's your gladiator situation. So I could see that, but obviously that would have to be very, very clandestine. Hey, listen, I want to throw this out here real quick because we got about 45 minutes or so. If anybody wants to call in and ask any questions, we got a good amount of listeners out there, and I know there's probably people that have something they want to contribute or have a question.
Don't be afraid, guys.
So it's 714-598-3125. Once again, 714-598-3125. Terry, I know you probably got something to contribute. If you want to, you can call in if you want to ask Laura a question here, because I know you've been on top of this stuff here quite a bit. Me personally, this is kind of like QAnon. I don't need to absorb every little detail about this because I can listen to you guys. That's why tonight, Laura, I didn't want to hear everything. I wanted to wait until, if I don't know about it, then I know the listeners probably don't know about it also. So I'm more than happy to hear about it at the same time. But again, now's a good time. If you guys want to join us and ask a question, you can hook up to me on the Skype, or you can call it 714-598-3125. Oh, and by the way, shout out to Australia, Canada, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. We talked about so much stuff.
My friend that was from the Freemason family, she also told me that as we got deeper into the conversation, maybe 30 minutes in, that somebody had been in this messed up marriage, and because there are bloodline things, like the royal family, they bring in Princess Diana because they have to humanize the bloodline, the blue blood, the reptile blood.
Right.
And she said that this woman took her aside and was just inconsolable because she said this guy changed, like she was looking at a lizard at a certain point when he got excited and they were making love.
Oh, God.
She got pregnant. And then
my
this
mom
gal
hooked
that I'm
up with a
talking
lizard.
to.
My mom hooked up with one. Looked like a human, though.
Oh, God.
He's in the book, too. Tom Hansen.
Your mom.
That's Tom Hansen.
Your mom was a classic narcissist. And I'm sorry that's the way it was for you, but everybody has their journey,
Sorry about that. I was trying to pick up Terry Joyce, and I screwed it up here. I'm going to add her to the group call. She wants to come in and ask you a question. Well, they went through my mom to get to me. And I didn't, the guy was a wacky. My first clue that he wasn't human was when my mom said, this guy's a little weird in bed. He's a little too, yeah, seriously. That's what I knew he wasn't human. Because he was a damn lizard. He wasn't used to being human. He wasn't used to getting his little human skin rubbed on and all that stuff. He's like, wow, I really like that lotion. Wow, I really like that lotion.
Oh my God.
I really like that lotion. More lotion. I mean, the lizard in him was like getting off on it. And she's like, wow, this guy acts like he's never had a massage before or something. This is really weird. That's what she's saying.
That's what I was talking about, Bob Hope. There's an energy there that is not it's too animal, maybe reptile.
Right.
I mean,
okay.
There's an empathy chip missing.
I want to throw something out really important here, and before Terry says something, and that is that, for instance, we very briefly touched on this whole concept of the jump room, which basically goes to Mars, which we know is supposedly, I mean, there's one in Montauk, and apparently there's one out here on the West Coast located at 999 Sepulveda Boulevard in El Segundo, or something of this nature. And
which is where Boeing and all those places.
Which is Boeing and TRW and Hughes Aircraft and all those companies were. Yeah, I'm very familiar. Big buildings. Anyway, the point is that when you do that technology and you convert your matter, your mass, your body, your physical being into essentially a radio signal, and you are a radio signal for essentially 30 seconds or so until you rematerialize in the little jump room at the other location, your soul is susceptible to being reprogrammed, taken over, hijacked, whatever. Okay, especially if you are predisposed to being service to self, like these narcissistic Hollywood types. Mean, my God, you take Obama. I mean, his greatest qualification for getting in that jump room and going to Mars and becoming president was him being a narcissist, probably. But
he
anyway,
never had a chance.
Yeah, he never. It's all his mama's fault.
Prostitute at a young age. Yeah, he had a bad mother too.
Bad mother, bad father, you name it.
Women are a big problem part of this problem. And there's so much male bashing going on, and for good reason when it comes to the warmongers. But let's not forget, a lot of those Senate wives are with their
hell yeah,
their helmet hair. They're just as bad as the men. And I fault people like Hillary and Janet Reno because what the hell, women? You're not wired right. You've got penis envy. You're not understanding that we're different, but we're equal and we're powerful. And I don't know. That gets into a whole other thing, but I do see that as a cultural problem.
It's the same enemy, though. It gets back to the same enemy and the same root causes and all that. But tonight, we're not about roots. We're about details. So, Terry, did you want to say hi to Laura?
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Terry.
Hi. It's nice.
I love your show.
Thank you. It's nice to speak with you. What you said on Stephen's last show was just it was an aha. Things just clicked, and thank you for being courageous and coming out and saying those things. So
well, it's time.
Yeah. I mean, it is time, but I don't think a lot of people are. I mean, I know that I have friends that aren't even willing to look at it still yet.
Hey,
it's like
before you go on,
out.
I don't want you to get her all scared, but there's something I want to say here publicly, real quick, just
Sure.
to anybody that might be listening now or in the future, and that is that Laura here is officially under my wing, and that means if anybody even has any malice towards her whatsoever, if you even think a bad thought about her whatsoever, there's a good chance you will not wake up. Okay? Just want you to know that.
Well, that
wow.
is true.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Carry on.
But one of the things that I noticed and I wanted to share with you was, when you mentioned about how when you went to the place and it reminded you of The Shining and Stanley Kubrick. And then I stumbled on one of 30 Seconds to Mars video called The Kill, and they do a homage to that film in the video.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I thought, yeah. I thought that was kind of coincidental.
Here's another thing about Kubrick is Eyes Wide Shut. I think he was taken out, no question. And what they edited out of the film, it's scary enough as it is. But apparently Alice, the Nicole Kidman character, there was a ritual killing, and she was probably gang raped. And then I don't know if it went to cannibalism, but Kubrick was trying to warn us. And the clues in The Shining are all about the secret space program. And when I was working with the astronaut, that's why I had all this in my head at that same time that I went to that house. So I had just looked at The Shining over and over. I never wanted to see The Shining when it came out because it made me feel dirty. I mean, and apparently there are secret, subliminal programming and shots in the film. But the good thing is that people in the last 5 years have been studying all this, and I think we probably did go to the moon, but we didn't go the way they told us we went.
Oh,
and
let me throw something out there.
Kubrick.
We know that a lot of the Apollo missions. I mean, first of all, I grew up in that era and all that, so I know for sure we went there at least 3 times because they left the optics on the surface, and I was in that business of making the optics and all that. But remember Point Magoo and that whole area right there. What is that Air Force Base? Not Edwards, but the one right there at that point right there is where they launched all these Apollo missions, the unofficial Apollo missions. For instance, Apollo 18 and the ones to go look at those big structures on the moon and stuff that, top secret. They that's where they took off from. And back in the day, those things would take off and you saw a big giant plume that went up there, and they would just tell us, oh, that was a satellite, that was this, that was that. Nobody knew what the hell it was. And before they even had chemtrails, this is where they tested all this stuff. They would send up rockets, and the rockets would make these big, huge chemtrail plumes, and that was the predecessor of all the chemtrails and all that. So, and then also you got to remember, it's connected to that massive, giant underwater entrance thing down there.
Right.
So if there's a secret space program, that's where it is. And they come out of the water, and I've known people that were out there fishing out there that said monstrous, monstrous things have come out of the water.
Right.
You know, so I truly believe that. But this is what I said on Alfred's show a couple of weeks or a week ago or whatever, is that the very fact that they have a secret space program, and the very fact that it's secret and it's not part of our Constitution, and it's not part of our budget, et cetera, and the American public are not voting on it, tells you that it's wrong, it's wicked, it's evil, it's part of the dark side, and it's part of the underground government, the secret government. It's just like the project. It's so totally connected to Project Paperclip. It's totally connected to the human sacrifice and the dark budget, the black budget that's going into building these huge bases. And if we've learned anything just from this, obviously connecting the dots of these people's houses that draw a straight line to this damn big, huge base on the coast of California, we know that's the answer right there. And if you look and continue that line, it goes right where? It goes out to the island right there.
Catalina.
Well, not Catalina, but Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz, one of those islands. You know, Catalina's a little further south, but that is an off-limits island. Vandenberg, right. Thank you, Mountain Man. Thank you. Vandenberg.
Yes, Vandenberg. That's right.
Vandenberg. That's right. So obviously, in other words, this is the thing, you know. And there's something else I want to bring up, because the elitism issue is a really big part of this, because obviously it's part of the whole construct of the Masonic, the Illuminati, the pecking order, the 33rd, et cetera, and that is that when you are gaining access to the underground, yes, you think you're very cool. You have made it. You are one of them. You are cool. When you gain access to the secret space program and those bases with the submarines and all that, yes, that's an extra level of cool. You're even more cool. If you get to go to the moon, you're even more elite. And if you go to Mars, you're the most elite of all of them. There's very little above the Mars people, and that's the guys that are getting in the little beam ships and flying around and going all over back and forth in time and stuff, you know. But when you get down to it, these caver people, the ones that get to go to Mars, are considered the ultra elite of the ultra elite, and they sniff at, and it's almost like it's the ultimate carrot that they give these guys. And it's like, imagine the hubris and the attitude of Obama, and then realize that this asshole supposedly went to Mars and thinks that his shit does not stink, and that we are all could never be good enough to do what he was allowed to do because he's so special. And this is what the Masons do. They convince you, and the Illuminati and the Templars, they do the same thing. They convince you that you're better than everybody else. And then they try to take that away from you so that you'll do whatever it takes to get it back. But that's the first step, is they've got to convince you and by going to Mars is one of their big things. Obviously, could you imagine what it must be like to be young Mr. Leto with his rock band, Hollywood career, TV shows? He got to play the Joker. He's up on stage, yada, yada. People think he's Christ.
Oh, and I do want to say that his band is in the Guinness Book of World Records as having toured most cities ever, or something like
come
that.
Come on.
Right.
Well, how many? Weird. What is his soul worth? I mean, really?
Yeah.
You sold, you know, you got a good deal on his soul.
I don't know. I guess it's the mother part of me that I feel like he may not realize. He may be in denial in some ways. I know that's hard to understand, but you could kind of see it with Johnny Depp, where we just lost him.
See it in their eyes.
I mean, from 21 Jump Street to, yes.
Yeah.
See it in their
Katy
eyes.
Perry. Look at
Joe Biden.
I understand what I get. I get what you're saying.
I feel sorry for her.
You know, that's the thing. You look at Carrie Payton.
Oh, Kanye. We got to talk about Kanye.
There's another one. But Katy Perry is a good example because when you look in her eyes right now, you want to believe that she's an innocent child that just got caught up in all the sugar and candy, that she got exposed to. And yet now she realizes that her life is actually in danger because her team is getting ready to go down and everyone's going to find out. And she's scared to death of what not only we might do, but what her masters will do to her. And that's a legitimate fear. That's a very legitimate fear.
Gaga.
Yep, same thing. Lady Gaga, perfect example.
We have to have some compassion for these artists. That's the important message I want to say is that there's something bigger. There's a predator, right?
Well, hey, Laura, if they put all their weight behind me, if they will kiss my hand, I will make sure that happens. Otherwise, they're on their own. Okay, I put that out there.
Well, it's up to Creator, I guess.
Because if it's up to Trump, Trump's going to cut their head off or shoot them. But if I was in charge, I might actually let them live. Like I've said, I would do that. I would welcome them back into the family, but they're not going to have their freedom. But they won't get that offer for very long.
I think that Trump is trying to get enough information to the public that the public will be outraged. And I hope the pedophilia gets exposed, but my fear is that it's all going to be the financial stuff because they're afraid to let the public know. It's frightening.
They don't want the pitchforks. The torches and the pitchforks will come out and it won't stop. And Donald Trump is one of them. He knows what'll happen.
You said he wasn't a Freemason, but he's
a rich man. He's a rich man, and you see, this is the thing. If we become swept into some sort of a not socialist, but a proletariat versus the Bolsheviks type of situation, which is what we need to avoid, then it'll get really ugly, and that's what they want. We don't want to do that, and this is why it's so important that we don't allow that to happen and that we go underground, because if we go underground, first of all, everybody will be on the surface will be so shocked at what happens that they will become complacent, or they won't be, in other words, if we pull up all that wealth and all that technology and bring and free the children and bring up the perps at the same time, I think people will be so overwhelmed that we might be able to get away with not having to execute all the perps, which is what we need to try to do. That's got to be our goal of this mission. Free the children, capture the perps, liberate the technology and liberate the wealth, secure the undergrounds, and at the same time try to do this in a loving way that doesn't involve the slaughter of the perps. Tough job. But that's what we need.
What are all those FEMA camps for? Why did we pay for those?
Exactly. We might as well use them efficiently.
Why don't people rise up?
It's time
They have no record of the space landing. All that, 750 boxes where it all got lost. Are you kidding me? Like the biggest achievement in human history. And the public doesn't. That's why there has to be mind control going on, because I look at things and I can't understand why people don't see it. I mean, Rumsfeld told us, we know 9/11.
They had to.
Pardon me?
The film, all the airbrushing they did on the film, it's because they had to remove all the alien structures and stuff.
Well, that's what I've heard. And you know what? We're big people here. We've watched all the space movies. If people will just understand that Hollywood they show us things, and they're showing true things that are technology that has existed for 70 years in some cases. Like you look at a film like Gravity, and what I thought was interesting about that film is when you look at the production design of the space capsule, it really looks like the 60s. It's very retro.
Wow.
So I think they were doing that stuff way back when, and they're
so many people hated that movie. Oh my God, so many people hated that movie. Sandra Bullock. Hey, I gotta throw this out there. Oh God, Sandra Bullock. Oh my God, no, you just distracted me now. Damn it, the stupid Gravity movie. Oh, there's something else I was going to say. So, hey, what are we going to talk about next week? No, God. See, that's terrible when I get distracted. How
Well,
much time we
Bob
got left?
Hope, I
Half
want to
hour.
finish that.
All right, Bob
I want
Hope.
to
Go.
finish that Bob Hope thing because we talked about Samuel Bush, the great grandfather, and his son was Prescott. So he funded the Nazis with Brown Brothers Harriman, and the bank. That's how he got. He married into the Walker family, and they were wealthy and had status. So he got his status that way, and then he was convicted of treason. You can look this up on Wikipedia. Like, where are our journalists? Why didn't we know this? I didn't know this. But there were books published about the history of the Bushes. And I have a personal beef because I think the dad, Bush Sr., Poppy, Mr. Heroin, took my father out. So it's personal, and it's also much bigger because I think he's one of the worst criminals on the planet right now. If you really look at how the world would be different without the Bushes, it's pretty. And they all went to the prep school where I lived for 30 years. So, and somehow George H.W. Bush was head of the CIA when he was head of the trustees. So I wonder,
All right.
where are the underground tunnels
Were
there?
you suggesting that the Skull and Bones was actually connected to this facility out here in L.A., Lookout Mountain?
I think that the Skull and Boners have infiltrated the highest levels of government, and some of the names you know and other names you don't know, and those are the career bureaucrats that behind the scenes have just been doing evil. They're evildoers, and they're elitists, and they think of us as useless eaters. So just to finish that piece with Prescott Bush, he was convicted of treason, and part of his plea deal was to create the USO, which was that's what Bob Hope headed and took all the pretty girls over, for the troops.
So he paid for it. He had to pay for it.
Yeah, but they made it into a whole MK Ultra. I mean, when you read Kathy O'Brien's book, you realize that they were used these presidential models, and they were considered. They didn't look at these women as human. I mean, when you look at what happened, and some of them came out of satanic ritual abuse families, like I think both those women did. So it's so complicated. But anyway, Bob Hope was a very, very bad man. And I knew when I met him, because energetically I get a feeling about somebody. And it wasn't until, 5 years ago or so when I started studying this stuff that I realized that I was right, that my instincts, were right about him. There was something, it's like they want to take you over. They're like raptors. They can't control themselves. And they'll cop a feel or, just like George H.W. Bush in his damn wheelchair. I mean, you can see the marks of it. So we cracked the door open. If we can just get the public, because we're not going to get the press, but get the public to get this information out there, then we're home free. But like you always say, Stephen, we can't wait for the second coming. I mean, I feel that the Spirit of Jesus Christ is here. It's more accessible than ever. And so people that are thinking about some stupid second coming, wake up. Wake up. We have all kinds of rays that are hitting our planet. I've always been interested in space. And there's shit going down. And what makes me angry, because I lived at a school and I homeschooled my two youngest kids, I want the children to have a shot at the truth. History is not dictated. History is a dialogue. And I was very close to Howard Zinn, who wrote the People's History of the United States, that you probably remember, what's his name, Matt, held up in, I'm spacing out on the movie, but Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting.
Matt Damon.
When he's in therapy,
Matt
Damon. When he's
Matt
in therapy
Damon.
with Robin Williams, and so Howard's book all of a sudden became like a bestseller. It had been around for a long time, but his whole point as a great historian is that you have to look at history from different points of view, because the victors write history, so to speak. So we need our children to be able to have open discussions about these things. And what I see going down, and I see it at universities, I could tell you stories about Brown University. I mean,
tell us stories about Brown University.
Oh God, I think that's probably another. I have tried to, since you're encouraging me, Stephen, I've tried to kind of put some of my anecdotes in order so that we sort of gnaw down the bone in a way that the audience, it's easier for them to follow, because I have major, ADHD.
Yeah, I know. You've got to. It's like writing a screenplay. It's got to be just right. Same thing.
But I'll tell you about my dad. My dad went to Harvard on the GI Bill. He and Henry Kissinger were in the same class. I think it was 1950, and they were the only two that were nominated for the School of International Affairs. So Kissinger went on, had his career. He's another one of the most evil people on the planet. And my dad went into business with his father, who was a Swedish immigrant, and had a construction company. And so my dad put the sort of spit and polish on the company and made it bigger. And he had architects and engineers working together. It was a whole new philosophy, because it used to be that they were in separate places and they're at odds. It's kind of like the director and the producer of a film, because the director has this big vision and the producer has to kind of rein them in. So it's the same thing with the engineer, has to make what the architect designs into reality. So anyway, he was recruited by the Bin Ladens to work with them in the early 70s. There was a Princeton connection there with the Saudis, and the party line that we were given was, they liked the smaller company, and they liked that my mother was Armenian, and they liked that it was a family, Well, I'm sorry, my dad had to have been a cutout, because, for example, my mom told me she sat next to the head of the CIA, William Colby, and she used to say how wonderful he was. And, you don't sit next to the CIA unless there's a reason. And these are the things that I started slowly figuring out as I got older, especially after 9/11, because everybody in my family, it somehow went completely over their heads that my dad was involved with these people. And I think my dad was taken out. He died of a heart attack while he was giving a speech at Princeton. That they had destroyed my dad. They destroyed his business. And then George H.W. Bush was a big part of it. My dad was very close with Governor Dukakis and supported Dukakis when Bush was running. We all know what happened there. So I'm sure he was, and also he was having meetings with the Carlyle Group with Frank Carlucci. And somehow this went all over my older brothers and my mother's head. And so I'm like the black sheep of the family, because I've been trying to put it all together and figure out what went on there, And I think what went on was you get to a certain level and they think you're part of the club. And then when you see the horror, like you did, Steve, with the Honduras story, where these people are killers and they don't care, they're into like massive snuff films. And that's what 9/11 was. It was a massive Freemason ritual with the Twin Towers. And we're all still in cognitive dissonance. Think of how that changed our world completely and how they've manipulated us. But I'll say one good thing about that. I believe that Trump and the white hats are using the Patriot Act to get these devils.
Uh-huh. They're turning it around on them.
Yes. And I think God has a lot to do with that.
Well, I agree, but there's still a lot of shall we say, deep state embedded in a lot of these agencies, and yeah, the FBI and the CIA and the NSA especially are really compromised, and would be really hard to ever bring that back in line, if it's even necessary to do ultimately. Hell, if they go down underground and take all that crap over, they'll have technology they won't need a CIA and NSA anymore.
There's too many secrets. I believe that some things have to be classified, of course. You don't tell people what you're doing on the military level. I understand all that, but it's way overboard, and our government is so bloated. There's so much waste, and we'd be fine in a second. Now, he has frozen the assets of people that are involved in human trafficking, but somehow, like, I talk to friends and family, they don't know this is going on. Maybe that's a good thing, because you don't want the public to panic.
Ultimately. Well, there you go. Back to, one of my shows, we did The Prince, Niccolo Machiavelli, and he says right there, when the new prince comes in, which is what Donald Trump is, he has to purge the vestiges of the enemy, and he has to do it cleanly and surgically and all in one strike. And it's, I'm sure he's not stupid. He's probably paying attention to these rules. And like I've said many times on this program, is that if he was to remove them all in such a way that everybody pretty much got over it really quickly, then more power to him. That's what he needs to do.
One of the Luciferian tricks, which is in Elders of Zion too, is that you accuse your enemy of what you are doing.
That which you are guilty.
And you make a preemptive. You make it a preemptive attack, and that messes with everybody's mind. So we are in World War III, in my view, and it's a war for our minds. And that's where consciousness comes in, and that's where you can call it this Armageddon battle. I mean, I don't like to use all the biblical stuff because there's so much baggage there, but we are in a battle, and it's a beautiful thing. Uh-huh. I think we've already won it, but we can't act like we've won it because there's way too much work to be done. But on some level, I feel really hope. This is what Laura Eisenhower was saying too. She said she wakes up in the morning now and she feels like, okay, I can feel it. Things are happening. And I think a lot of people feel that, and I just hope that we hang on to that. Like you said about Q, whether Q is AI or whatever the heck Q is, a team of people, the information is coming out. It's been proven that this Q Anon is putting out information that then we see happen. Those of us who are awake are watching. And so I think the reason why it's a puzzle, it has to do with military intelligence and code, but it also is to make us think. We have to do the work with our minds.
We have to ask questions. It's like with anything.
Exactly. That's the great, Greek way of learning is you ask the right questions.
Well, it's like having an angel, and I've told people like this that are dealing with the spiritual stuff. It's like you could have an angel sitting there willing to tell you anything you want to know, but if you don't even bother to formulate a question, you're not going to get an answer. And the value and depth of those questions will determine the value and depth of the answer and the information you get. So it's up to you.
That's so right on, because you have to ask these questions. They're not going to just deliver you some download, because the way consciousness works, I think, is as you formulate the right questions, you get answers. Mm-hmm. But if you don't formulate those questions, you're not accessing that oracle flow, whatever it is, time, space continuum. Mm-hmm. We're on the brink of something so big.
Well, there's something else that you could tie in real quick to that same line of thought, and that is the concept of manifesting. And if you waste your time trying to manifest something small, you're only going to manifest something small. Focus on something big, like saving the earth. So. Yeah,
something not for self, as you're always stressing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can focus on money or material things, but go beyond that. Go to, I want to be in a place where I can do the kinds of things that, that are going to bring me greater fulfillment. And that would automatically, I think, mean some material security. And so, it's kind of, there are these lessons of Jesus that, I was brought up with. Not that I was, I think it's easier for me as a Unitarian than a lot of Catholics, for example, who are brought up with the dogma of Rome. And one thing I've said on my Facebook page before Christmas is, if every Catholic, because the Catholics are the faithful, they are the faithful. They are the ones that they do the rituals because they're faithful. And there's something to be said about ritual. I mean, the Unitarians took all ritual out, and it's kind of stale. So I feel that if Catholics banded together and said, we reject Rome, we reject this Pope, take back your churches. I love to sit in a Catholic church with all the bad stuff that's gone on. And apparently in past lives I was persecuted. So, it's kind of freaky for me. But there's something beautiful. And when I walk among people that are Luciferian, I just love them out. I just piece them out for the most part, because I feel like they're victims of something. And if I can get Satan behind me and not fight with that force, because I'm never going to win. You want him behind you. You want that stuff behind you. And my whole experience, in a nutshell, with Hollywood, I spent 10 years there, and it was a Zen experience saying, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this. And I realized it was too corporate, and there was a sinister quality that we're talking about tonight that I didn't fully understand until I read Dave McGowan, until I had these experiences, that it's like God putting me on a path. Everybody is on a path. Source puts things in front of you, synchronicities, but if you're not looking for it, or if you don't really believe in that cosmic layer, or that, I don't know, I kind of see it like a tapestry. It's like the back of a tapestry is what we see. We see the knots, we see the short ends, and when we pass over this mortal coil to the other side, I think we see the front side of the tapestry. So there's so much that we don't know.
That's cool. But if people don't have tapestries, they don't know what you're going to talk. I actually have a nice one, so I know exactly what you're talking about. You get a pretty decent picture on the back, but it's nothing compared to what you get on the other side.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, I've talked so much. I hope
See, I'm sort of a tapestry.
I'm getting one in the mail very soon.
Oh, my gosh. Well, okay, the thing about the tapestry.
I love your show.
I
love that you have a voice, and I love that you're so smart, and humor is what really gets us through, but you're like Lenny Bruce.
Oh, thank you.
You really lay it out there.
I met his mother. The first set I ever did at the Improv and got laughs. She grabbed my hand and had me sit down next to her. So that's interesting.
How nice.
Yeah. And she said to me, she goes, "You're a little bit dirty, but so is Lenny." And I'm thinking, wow, no kidding. But she says you have to make a choice, and I really think the choice is about telling the truth, or it's about. It's not really about the fact that it's a nasty word. It's really what you're saying more. That's where the freedom is.
Yeah.
It's trippy that she was hanging out in comedy places after.
Oh, she was a comedian. She said that she was the first female comedian in 1942 or 43. I think it was 42. And she used to hang out at the Playboy Mansion too.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but she's a very
God,
nice
have you ever
lady.
been there, Terry?
Hey, we're gonna have to see if that's on the line.
I never went there. No.
Okay. No, we have to.
So I went to the Playboy
now.
Mansion. The Playboy Mansion is so. My experience was it was so scuzzy. It's like a nightclub during the day, like it looks pretty at night, and then during the day, like it's nasty. That's another big piece of this, because like to Jack Nicholson's house on Mulholland Drive, and I think Warren Beatty was a part of that before he married Annette Bening, but there are these tunnels, Stephen. So how do we find out where these tunnels are?
This is what we're going to do.
Attention?
First of all, I want to get a big printout of the map, and then I want to pinpoint Getty Magoo, Houdini Mansion, not the real one, not the carriage house, the Lookout Mountain, and then draw a line and then look and see what's along that line. And I expect we will see Jack Nicholson, we will see Warren Beatty, and we will see the Playboy Mansion.
Right.
And a few others.
Think it has to do with like these ley lines, or?
I think that what it is there's a big old connector, and they all want to connect to it because ultimately they want to get in on the lifeboat out of town, either underground or on a secret space thing that's going to take off from Vandenberg.
But do you think that some of these earthquakes and tremblings and explosions and irregularities are taking out some of those underground bases?
Well, I know a lot of people are talking about that stuff, but this is the thing about these underground bases is that you've also got the ones, of course, that are being run by the lizards. And the entities that are doing that sort of warfare, such as the Pleiadians, have certainly they're going to be fighting and taking out the reptoid bases, but a lot of what I've heard is that they will actually allow them to leave the facility before they destroy it, and they use something of they change the pressure inside of it, and that would kill whatever's in it, but it doesn't always destroy the base. So it's hard to say. Now, as far as whether or not there's a war between Faction A and Faction B of the government, we know that is going on, but whether or not it's going on underground, it's really hard to say. And if we want to accept that that's going on, I'm not ready to suggest that, again, like people have been saying, the Marines have actually rescued the children. No, there's no way that would happen and we would not know about it. And just the same way as if it's very hard for you to muster 100,000 troops or whatever, special forces troops, and send them into this sort of a combat scenario over a long period of time without word getting out. We're going to hear about it, and psychically we're going to know about it too. So I don't get that. And if there is warfare going on, I think that most of it is going on between the Earth forces of the Illuminati and the force, and it's happening on a fourth density level. Most of it, I don't think it's even happening on our level. But a lot of the spaces that are being affected, some of them do serve people or entities on a third density and a fourth density concurrently, such as the Getty. I believe the Getty is such a facility where you've got people walking around in the third density, and then you've got like another dimension, a fourth density, and you've got people walking around in there, and it's the same damn thing, only it's a higher level of density.
Right. Now, when you went to the Getty Love Nest that you talked about last week, you went there physically.
Well, I'm not going to say either way, but I'm not going to give out those details. But why? Well,
I was just curious where you were going to go with that, because you said you had.
I don't really have plans on going back. Let me just say that it's not really necessary to go back, only because technically it's compromised. It's not really safe to go back, and again, it's not really necessary. Now, sure, the only reason to go back at this point would be to do some real hardcore forensic collection of evidence, but the thing is that would require removal of that from the premises, and that's the problem, is that's theft. See,
right?
So we're not into that.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to haul a VCR in there and sit down and watch all his damn movies to find his pornos. However, though, if I did find one that had snuff films involving children that was filmed by Hunter S. Thompson with Johnny Depp sitting in the background beaten off, I think I'd probably freak out.
Oh, God, what is wrong with these people?
Yeah,
they're not healthy. They're sick.
This is what they're doing. And, I'll say again that these studios that we're describing and the work of Hunter S. Thompson and what have you, we're not just talking about the dark web and what have you. This crap there's a constant, in other words, Hollywood has to fill the need of the media and sate the need of the people and provide propaganda and whatever. At the same time they're doing this, they're trying to do it for these people underground. They also require constant entertainment and distraction and ever increasing amounts of gore and what have you. And this is why they have to have these studios to do this somewhere on the surface, close to Hollywood, where they can recruit the biggest names, and they have a ready supply of homeless people, drug addicts, runaways, etc.
Oh my God.
Right?
Well, when you connected that this studio had to have been used for other nefarious purposes, obviously, and what Abel Danger has exposed very explicitly with concrete proof is that there is this death cult and that there are patents. And I think that you're right that this place may have been used to develop some of those films, which apparently have taken place at Bohemian Grove. That's
no doubt.
One thing we're referencing. And if you go into the Franklin scandal, Paul Bonacci was one of the kids that was used, and he gives eyewitness of some of the things that went on there that are just the most horrific things you can ever think of, which Stephen talked about some of those last week. But how can we look the other way? It changes your life forever when you figure out this is going on. And that's what needs to happen. We can't look the other way.
Everybody's lives. That's the problem. Is that once it happens to you, you can't go back. You can't go back to being ignorant, and even if you want to, and you could get angry about it and think, "Damn it, why did that happen to me? I was perfectly happy to be ignorant." Right?
Yeah. My husband and I went into couples therapy, and the first thing that came out of his mouth was, "She thinks the Pope sacrifices babies and that there's human meat in fast food franchises." And I said, wow, that's a cheap shot, like no context. These are things that at a certain point I started mentioning to him because he has knowledge of, things that go on, and he just could not. It's very different,
I went through the same thing, exactly the same thing. I remember sitting at the office with a priest there, and it's like, what am I supposed to say? I'm dealing with CIA, NSA, and aliens and underground cities, and you're supposed to understand me? It's like, come on,
Well, he had my brain scanned, and I can tell you my brain was absolutely beautiful. I said, okay, I'll agree to it if I can look at my brain. I figured, hey, why not look at my brain? And the doctor said, your brain is beautiful. And it was.
It wasn't abnormal. All right, hang on a second. I got to jump in there only because it's like a little after 9, and it's like, we got to end it. I actually have to go get a drink of water or something. I got tea calling me. But we went through the whole show without me mentioning any notice or mention of the fact that we are listener supported and we do depend on people's donations. And, I know that sometimes the people they listen to these shows, they go, oh, you're just like that David Wilcock guy or Alex Jones. All you care about is the money. No, obviously, if we care about the money, we'd be trying to sell you vitamins right now, and we'd be charging you for the second half of the show, and you'd have to pay to listen to the archive or whatever the hell. You're not getting any of that here. And so I hope you did appreciate the content, and hopefully this is one for the ages. Obviously, it's just one more day in the war against the dark side. And naturally, we intended tonight to bring Jared Leno and his brother, whatever the hell that silly ass name he's got. What's the hell? Shannon. Shannon with an E. Okay, Shannon, you big tough guy, Shannon. Yeah, it's war, man. Quote your song. It's just a song title. I'm not threatening her. It's my song title. That's what, in his devious little mind,
War is their song, and it's Luciferian. It talks about going to the light and bringing in a brave new world. And they think they won.
He thinks that that's a threat, and he thinks that it's a subtle threat that he can make because it also happens to be that, in other words, if he gets challenged for a terrorist threat, he's going to say, what? It's the name of a song. What are you talking about? But anyway, pussy maneuver. You got my attention, idiot. You blew it. You got my attention. You should have kept your mouth shut. I would have never knew who you were. Now you blew it. Anyway, idiot. And I'll tell you, this is exactly.
I felt very weak. This week. I have to say that. I don't have any fear, but I know that I had to take some hits. So I just would like to put that on the record.
You're Supergirl. Come
It's all
on.
good.
You're Supergirl. All right,
We're
listen.
winning.
I forgot. I don't think I finished my commercial yet. The whole asking for money business. I think I failed at that. Let me.
Everybody send in $5.
Send it.
Send in
Send it.
$25.
There you go. $5. Would that be
And
something?
that would really help Stephen because
It
he's
would.
kind of taken the style of poverty. I wish it
Kinda.
weren't that way, but he's not like, and Alex Jones, okay, we have to give him a nod, but when you get into all those products, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's not think
Ridiculous.
about that. But no, if you guys, though, the PayPal, of course, is StephenKelley714@gmail.com. And if you do drop something in there, say it's for friend or family. And if I don't send you an email that says thank you, I'm blaming it on my mother. She screwed me up. You got that part in the book, right? My mother, she goes store. She's a shopaholic. She'd buy this stuff and she'd go, say thank you. Say thank you. It's like, oh my God, I hated it. It's like, oh my God, she's buying this more crap and I'm going to have to say thank you for it. It's like, geez, I'm so screwed.
Well, how about when you make jewelry for your wife and then she'd say, well, I need just as much jewelry.
Well, that was really bad because, I go make something for Danelle to be like $1,000 worth of whatever. And then my mom's expecting to get something of equal value. It's like, are you kidding me? Oh my God, that's really? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like gifts for somebody when you're buying somebody a gift, a family member, I mean, do you spend hundreds of dollars? I mean, I don't know. You do. You're probably rich, but I don't know. I know Terry does it. Most people.
Yeah, I'm not.
I just show
rich
up
in
like,
spirit.
hey, I was able to get bus fare to make it here.
No kidding. No, but I remember when I had money that on the holidays, you'd spend all your money, whatever money you had, you spent it. And then when it was all
Right.
over, you wondered if you spent enough. And,
Yeah.
it was
With
horrible.
kids. You had 6 kids.
Yeah, 6 kids. And then, 6 kids. And then, of course, my wife, Mexican, she's got cousins and aunts and uncles and, all that. It had, oh my God. And I gave her one year, I gave her an American Express card. And I turned around. Next thing I knew, there was $1,000 on that American Express card. I'm like, holy crap, that was fast. It's like, oh, well, there was cousin so-and-so and cousin so. Oh, it's like, oh my, anyway, live and learn. That probably doesn't sound like
Another
a lot.
life. That was then.
That was
This is
another
now.
life. Yeah, it was interesting.
But you've got another life after this because you're a truth cat, so you've got 8, so you still got a few left.
All right, Laura. I don't want to. Let me put it this way. Do you have any fun film projects you're working on?
Yeah, I have a really fun one.
A fun one. Extra fun?
Because, it's very difficult. Now, all the films I've done are not on my IMDb page, but we don't have to go there. But I need to work on something that feeds what we're talking about tonight. And so I'm very excited that I am developing something, and there's some good ideas. And I also think your animation idea, your anime idea for Truth Cat, you got to pursue that because that will help.
Well, that's the thing is I in fact, I did talk to somebody in Japan, a couple people actually about this, and they just, the motivate. In fact, I have other ideas for movies I'd love to talk to you about, actually 2 of them in particular, and they're so big, it's like I can't believe, one of them in particular, I can't believe it hasn't been done yet. We'll have to talk, but it's the other story though, the one that we've been talking about. Obviously, I think that's a big deal. Only not because of my involvement, but because I think the nature of the story, it's got to get out there somehow, and because they're fighting.
But how does it end?
Well, I know how does it end.
How does the story end?
We can brainstorm on something for that, but we can't wait for it. That's the problem. We can speculate. Actually, Matrix 1 and 2 and 3. This is just number 1.
I had a dream about
the film business is very difficult.
Yeah.
I had a dream about once.
Oh yeah, that's the number 1 obstacle because as soon as they find out what the subject matter is, they're going to say, "Are you kidding?"
Yeah. So I've been thinking about that.
Yeah.
So Terry, what was your dream?
Well, I was kind of wanted to write it into I thought it would make an interesting movie even because it was a dream about a woman who, just didn't really have a good love life, like, a bad, like awful guys or whatever. And she had a cat, but at nighttime, her cat turned into a guy, and there were all no, wait a second, stay with me. And then there were all these cats that at nighttime turned into people, and they fought some sort of like battle, like there were the bad cats and then the good cats. And
wait a minute, your cat is black. Was it a good cat or a bad cat?
No, my cat was a good cat.
Oh,
my cat was on the good side.
Yeah,
but the there were like the other
hey,
cats.
Wait a minute. It turned into a guy? Hang on now.
Yeah. Okay, but it was like a dual thing. Like it was like
very
a cat.
Cute, though. It's very cute. Yeah.
Of course, there's that English or that Irish actor that I used to see would have been right for it. He's in Inception. He plays the guy in Inception that goes under the sleep thing. But yeah, it was the whole thing about cats that turned into people that had a battle of the earth to save the planet. And then, of course, in the, I to me, the ending would be that when the battle's over, he just goes back into a cat, and then the guy's gone.
Oh. Oh.
It's kind of sad.
Well, I was thinking about Truth Cat, Mr. Kitten, the gray and white one that Stephen uses as his symbol, could be a great way to give information to people, kind of like what you're talking about, where the cat has another life. But I because there's all that cat people alien business, I don't think, and you had Cats on Broadway, which kind of did that. But my idea was to have use a graphic novel type thing with Truth Cat and make Truth Cat a real persona that can help teenagers, understand what the heck's going on here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, you could do that.
Anthropomorphic. He sounds a little bit like a furry, but
Oh God.
Truth Cat furry. I don't know about that. We don't want to make him like a furry, but
it
kind of falls into that category, huh?
There's that movie, is it Eye of the Cat, or it's a Stephen King film where the one cat, runs through the same 3 different stories.
Oh yeah,
Cat's
Eye.
Yeah, something like that. Drew Barrymore was a little girl
King.
in it.
Oh, that's actually interesting. It's kind of like that.
I meant Stephen King.
We're going all over the
Stephen
place.
King is otherworldly, and his wife is Tabitha. So I think they're definitely. I don't know how he's able to write so quickly, but he's like a sort of like Asperger's,
Oh, do you think he's a channel, maybe?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely goes into, that's what The Shining was based on, his novel, but Kubrick made it into his own interpretation. But I think there's a lot of sigils and.
Hey, Laura. What if you know how we were talking about the difficulty in trying to do the story and all that, and having to use the animals and what have you to sort of backdoor it? What if it was done, written and all that, but actually done in we went to Japan and had one of their studios, do the whole thing, but have Japan do it. That would kind of get around all the Hollywood, problem, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to a foreign financier, but I think the key is to maybe get somebody like Keanu who wants to direct, and you entice him out of retirement by saying, "Would you direct this?" And maybe he plays the.
Would you present it to him?
Of course.
Okay, then. That's your task now. Okay, please. Hey, I gotta tell you guys.
There's a lot of work that goes into it before.
I know. You gotta have
all your stuff lined up.
Send them some of that chocolate sauce you sent me. Oh my God, that stuff is so rich. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about getting a spoon right now and dipping into that stuff. But
good.
I think
need some chocolate.
I got this. She sent me this little jar of. She sent me a bunch of interesting, fun things. But there's a little jar of this. It's a dark fudge chocolate salted caramel sauce. And
Sea
it's really
salt.
sea salt. Sea salt.
Wow.
Yeah, all that. It's
Oh
got
my God.
all that going on.
Oh,
Terry,
sea
I'll have to
salted
send you
too.
some.
Oh my God! I took a
I'll send
spoonful
you
of
a
that
care
last.
package, Terry.
Oh wow, thank you.
Imagine it's sort of like just a ridiculously rich chocolate cake in a little spoonful kind of thing. Like that's what it was like, if you can
Oh,
imagine.
But it's real food.
Well,
That's,
I felt
I'm into real food. It's not, it's more pure than all the stuff you can get at the grocery store. It's from Maine. Maine
I
has
can't
good
imagine
food.
sitting there and eating that thing with a spoon, though, just like. I think I
Well,
need
you
to
got
get
to
a
put it
little
on
ice
ice
cream.
cream, dude.
Yeah, I got to get some vanilla ice cream or something to put it on.
Exactly.
Now you're talking.
And then lemon curd. Did you
The
take the
lemon
lemon curd?
curd, I need to, yes, I have one word for that, tart, very tart. It's interesting. It's sort of like, it reminds me of lemon meringue, only more tart and creamy, like a pudding, if you will. But definitely, I'm thinking I got to come up with something like a biscuit or a scone to put it on, something like that.
Right, like a Danish or something. It's so that you have the sweetness of the pastry, and that's why it's good that it's tart. It's not too sweet.
Yeah.
Because everything has corn syrup in it, and that's deadly now.
Well, yeah. But anyway, that chocolate was, wow. Maybe I was creaming it. Oh, I got to put it on the top of a cookie.
Well, let me just tell the audience that I do this with clients. Like I had one client that he had a very tough upbringing, and he never really had anything in the refrigerator and nothing under the tree. And so every time I saw him, I'd bring him a little gift. And it's a schmooze, but it's much greater than that. With you, I wanted to help your inner child realize everything's going to be okay. Because when you almost died, I asked permission to go in and see what was going on. And I felt that your head was really disconnected from your body, and you had just gotten too malnourished too, that you were on this drive, this obsessive drive, and you weren't taking care of yourself, and your own inner child was crying out and saying, "Daddy, help me.
Feed me." Yeah, well, it is an effort. It really is an effort to get up and eat sometimes. When your time does fly, right? When you're doing stuff, sitting at a computer all day. But you do have to get up.
And a lot of our eating habits have changed. A lot of people talk about that with the so-called ascension, and I certainly have experienced that where I don't need as much food.
Yeah,
I'm a breatharian.
I've gone to about 2 meals a day, and I'm trying really hard not to do that.
I'm having a similar thing too. Just not that interested anymore.
Yeah.
Although,
and I don't like meat, but every once in a while I have to have like a real piece of beef. Like
me too.
You need it because that's the world we're in. Like, okay, I need a little beef,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But Stephen was eating too many hamburgers. He needed some real higher grade of protein.
But I know even chicken, meat, whatever, sometimes it's almost like afterwards it's like, oh, I got to get this out of my mouth. I got to get it out of my teeth, right?
Yeah.
It's gross.
It is. I had chicken tonight. I'm thinking, oh God, and I'm thinking how you're conditioned to grow up to cutting it and eating it and making the little pieces and all that. I'm like, oh God. After the last bite, it was getting to the last bite. I said, okay, here, I gave it to Emily. I said, I really don't need this,
Well, you could feed your pets. That's right.
Yeah, okay. Well, I shared. No, there's a filet of sole I was really looking at to make it tonight, but the chicken was thawed out, how that is. So anyway, stuffed filet of sole.
Well, it's Lent, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But I realized that Good Friday is the big day, and that's a couple weeks away. So I thought I'd save it for that day. I was going to have it today, and I realized that the real big, fasting fish eating day is a couple weeks actually. We got to end this show. All right. Well, listen, we had a lot of fun. I know, I'm already getting feedback from the listeners who enjoyed the show. It's always like every show just gets so good, huh? Gooder and gooder. But we all enjoyed having you here, certainly, and I know that people are going to have questions or want to have you come back, and then obviously you're welcome to call back in any time you want and tell us what's up with this or that. And one of these days we're going to have to do a story about Sandusky and PA. I know that the other woman that knows a lot about that stuff doesn't really want to go public with what she knows, but I know you're got something to add.
Let's go public. I'm happy to tell that story. I just didn't want to get sidetracked because I wanted to make sure to get all the Getty Hollywood stuff out there first.
Yeah, we didn't, we could even go, like, for instance, I didn't really talk enough. I didn't go into the history of the Houdini mansion and the stuff that's going on there. That was actually, in fact, the thing about the Houdini mansion that people have to understand is that it was there for quite a while. And the elevator that went underground was legendary. And, here we are talking about rich people having elevators that take them down to underground tunnels. And here's one that everyone knew about publicly. And it just so happens to be part of the very same network that we're talking about. So there you go. If you need proof that the Hollywood elite and movers and shakers have got subterranean access, it's been public knowledge now for a good, 50, 60, 70 years.
Public knowledge, but people are not hearing it. They're not tying it together.
That's why we got to make a movie.
So that's what you're doing.
We got to make a movie.
You do it every week.
That's the thing about when we were talking about doing an anime, is the reason why you do an anime is because it's so hard to get people's attention. And the cartoon is a way of, so a lot of people hate it, but I know that in Japan, the people have a very short attention span, and they've got to deliver information to them like in that fashion because apparently it works. And to a degree, I think that here in the United States, it's the same thing. It's kind of like a meme that goes on continuously. We could probably cram a lot of information in there that could be very controversial, but because it's provided or presented in that format, people are going to be able to we'll get away with it. They won't. Well, they're not going to kill us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we could probably fund it.
The comic books are very powerful because spatially, if you look at it from an aesthetic point of view, and they're very interesting spatially, and they affect our minds very powerfully. So it's more of an art form than people are willing to give it credit for, but it does have a market that gets to the teenagers and the young adults, and they're our future.
Well, I really think that, and however if Mr. Kitten is the vehicle, that it needs to be done. Obviously, the Getty story and all that. Now, of course, the whole pedophilia thing. I think, of course, the Japanese manga business, they can get pretty hardcore, and without being too hardcore. So it's not going to be too foreign, I think, in that format. But anyway, something to think about. All right, let's finish it. Are you ready? Okay. Mm-hmm.
I'm ready.
Okay. Let me start
getting ready.
Goodbye. All right. Well, I'll let you go ahead and say goodbye then.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Call in and keep it vibrant. Keep more of a dialogue going.
Give money. No, sorry. Support your
money.
Local Truth
Please
Cat.
Send $5, send $25, whatever you can. Because Stephen really needs it right now so that he can continue and nothing gets interrupted. And, he can get what he needs for what he's doing, which is a major service to all of us.
Well, we're trying. Anyway, Laura, I do appreciate your time. Do you want to give out your last name for those people that are interested? Because I know there are a lot of people.
Not yet.
Okay. Oh, well, I told
in
you.
The future,
I said the name of
my
that
Facebook
one movie.
page.
I did say the name of that one movie, so if they're sharp, they can figure it out, huh?
Oh, that's true.
Uh-huh. Oh, now they're going to go back.
I love Matthew Modine, by the way. He was great working with. I love Matthew, so it was worth it working with him.
It was worth it. Hey, it was only at 23 on the Rotten Tomatoes scale. That's pretty good.
It's not a bad film. It's cute.
I'm not saying it's bad. It's just to be really considered bad, I think it's going to have to be way, way down there on the Rotten Tomatoes scale, don't you think?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not a bad film at all. It's probably 2.5 stars.
There you go. Well, if you say
But
so.
you love all your films, like your children. They're all different.
Of course.
And I've had the bidding war at Sundance, and I've had, all kinds of different experiences. So I love them all, like I love my children.
All right. Well, thank you for being with us, and we look forward to having you back again soon. And,
Thanks, guys.
Talk to you soon.
Love out to everybody. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right. All right, Terry, say good night.
Good night. Thanks for having me on tonight. I really enjoyed the show, Stephen. So
right.
Thanks.
Later on. All right, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us. And again, we are Truth Cat Radio. This is the Stephen D. Kelley Show. We do need your help, so if you can, do what you can. Also, please like this on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you see it. Share it. Very, very important that you do that. Help us out. And that is going to be about it. So again, until we see you next week, my name is Stephen Kelley. This is Stephen D. Kelley Show on Truth Cat Radio. And it's good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.